And Billy never gave me any explanation for it, never called me in to say why, anything, and it was a most strange thing. I would have preferred it if he'd have called me in the office and said, look, end of the day, you're 38 now, it's time to go, but he didn't do that, and I was very upset because I think I deserved at least some explanation for what happened.
He makes me sick. That's how Peter Lorimer once described one of the 5 men who haunted his football career. Fans remember him as HotShot. He was Leeds United's all-time top scorer. His right boot could fire shots at nearly 90 miles per hour. He scored 238 goals for the club. He won 2 league titles, the FA Cup and the League Cup. But Peter Lorimer's legacy is marked by bitterness, betrayal and anger. These 5 names didn't just annoy him, they defined his pain. They turned a glorious career into a story of frustration and regret. Brian Clough hated Peter Lorimer long before he became his manager. This wasn't just a work problem, it was personal. It was a vendetta that lasted years. Back in 1972, Clough was the manager of Derby County. Derby was Leeds United's big rival. Clough didn't just compete with Leeds, he attacked them in public. He called them cheats. He said they were dirty players. He derided them constantly in the press. Then came the moment that changed everything. There was an awards dinner. It was held in Lorimer's honour. He was being celebrated as one of the best players in England. Clough was invited as a guest. It should have been a night of celebration. What did Clough do? He stood up in front of everyone. He berated Lorimer. He told the room that Lorimer was a diver. He said Lorimer intimidated referees. He accused him of cheating to win matches. This was supposed to be Lorimer's night. Instead, Clough turned it into a public attack. He embarrassed Lorimer in front of his peers, his family, and the entire football community. Lorimer sat there in shock. He had done nothing to deserve this. He was simply a talented footballer being honoured for his achievements. But Clough saw it differently. To Clough, Lorimer represented everything wrong with Leeds United. When Clough was later interviewed about the incident on ATV Today in January 1973, he deflected. He joked that the problems arose because Leeds hadn't forgiven Derby for winning the league. He asked, "They are men in Leeds, aren't they?" He refused to take responsibility for his behaviour. Lorimer never forgot that night. Neither did the rest of the Leeds team. 2 years later, in 1974, something shocking happened. Don Revie left Leeds to manage England. The club needed a new manager. They chose Brian Clough. The man who hated them was now their boss. The man who had publicly humiliated their star player was now in charge. Clough's first meeting with the team became legendary. Leeds had just won the league championship. They were the best team in England. They were reigning champions. They expected respect. They got the opposite. Clough walked into the room. He looked at the players. Then he said something no one could believe. "The first thing you can do for me is you can take all those medals and you can throw them in the bin because you've won them all by cheating." The room went silent. These were proud men. They had worked their entire careers for those medals. Now their own manager was calling them cheats. He was telling them their achievements meant nothing. Clough wasn't finished. He turned to Lorimer specifically. "He told me I dived, rolled around as if I was injured when I wasn't," Lorimer recalled years later. The attack was direct. It was personal. It was humiliating. It was a continuation of the assault that had started 2 years earlier at that awards dinner. Clough went around the room. He told Billy Bremner he cheated. He told Eddie Gray, who had injury problems, "If you'd been a racehorse, you'd have been put down years ago." Every player got insulted. Every player was told they were worthless. The entire squad was demoralised within minutes. People often say the players plotted to get Clough fired. They say it was player power that forced him out after just 44 days. Lorimer always denied this. His explanation was simpler and sadder. There was never any plot by the players to get him out, but we couldn't give 100% for him the way we did for Revie. In the end, it was down to results. This is the key to understanding what happened. Lorimer couldn't play for a man who hated him. None of the players could. When your manager tells you you're a cheat, how can you perform? When he attacks your character, how can you trust him? When he insults everything you've accomplished, how can you respect him? Clough destroyed the team's spirit in 44 days. Lorimer was humiliated by a man who should have been his leader. The anger never left him. Decades later, even when the film The Damned United dramatised these events, Lorimer confirmed the accuracy of Clough's cruelty. The second man who tormented Lorimer was a French referee named named Michel Kitabjian. He didn't hate Lorimer personally. He just made the worst call of Lorimer's entire career. It was a decision that haunted Lorimer until his death. It was May 28, 1975. Leeds United was playing in the European Cup final in Paris. Their opponents were Bayern Munich. This was the biggest match of Lorimer's life. This was his chance at European glory. This was what every footballer dreams about. The Don Revie era was coming to an end. The team was aging. This might be their last chance. The match started badly for Leeds. In the first half, Franz Beckenbauer, Bayern's captain, made a scissor tackle on Alan Clark. It was inside the penalty box. It was clear. It was obvious. Alan Clark later said Beckenbauer himself admitted it was a blatant foul. The referee waved it away. No penalty. Later in the same half, Beckenbauer seemed to handle the ball on the ground inside his own area. Again, Leeds appealed for a penalty. Again, the referee said no. Beckenbauer was known for pressuring referees. It was working. He was influencing the match through sheer force of personality. Then came the 62nd minute. Peter Lorimer received the ball. He smashed home a volley. The ball flew into the net. It was a perfect goal. Lorimer had scored in a European Cup final. This was the moment he had dreamed of his entire career. The referee pointed to the centre circle. Goal. Leeds was level. The comeback was on. But then something happened. The linesman had raised his flag. Beckenbauer saw it. He pointed it out to the referee. He insisted the referee check with the linesman. His intervention was aggressive. It was insistent. He demanded the referee reverse his decision. The referee changed his mind. He reversed his decision. The goal was disallowed. Billy Bremner had been offside. Leeds protested. Bremner was way out of the line of sight. He wasn't interfering with play. It didn't matter. The goal was erased. Think about what this meant. The referee had given the goal. Lorimer had celebrated. The team had celebrated. Then it was taken away because of pressure from an opponent. This wasn't just a bad call. This was a goal given and then stolen. It was injustice in real time. Leeds never recovered. They lost the match 2-0, but the real damage was bigger than the scoreline. After the match, Leeds fans were so angry, they ripped out seats and threw them onto the pitch. The sense of injustice was overwhelming. UEFA punished the Leeds by banning them from European competition for years. Lorimer lost the greatest goal of his career. He lost the European Cup. He lost years of European football, all because of one weak referee and one moment of terrible judgment. The robbery in Paris became the defining moment of Leeds United's history. The Paris robbery haunted Lorimer for the rest of his life. The third man wasn't a villain. He was just better than Lorimer on one terrible day. His name was Jim Montgomery. He was a goalkeeper for Sunderland. It was May 5th, 1973, the FA Cup final at Wembley. Leeds United was the favourite. They were a First Division giant. They were champions. Sunderland was from the Second Division. This should have been easy. It wasn't. Sunderland scored first. They led 1-0. Leeds pushed forward. They dominated the match. They created chances, but they couldn't score. Then came the 70th minute. Trevor Cherry got his head to the ball. It was a powerful diving header toward goal. Montgomery dived. He palmed the ball away, but it fell straight to Peter Lorimer. This was the moment. Lorimer was standing right in front of goal. His right boot was the most powerful weapon in English football. Goalkeepers feared him. This was a certain goal. Lorimer blasted the ball toward the net, but Montgomery, already on the ground, somehow got to it. He managed to divert the ball onto the underside of the crossbar. The ball bounced away. No goal. It was one of the greatest saves in FA Cup history. Sunderland won 1-0. The Second Division team had beaten the champions. It was a massive upset. David had beaten Goliath. For Leeds, it was devastating. Years later, Lorimer called Montgomery the scourge of my life. He remained haunted by that moment. If I had that chance again, I wouldn't do anything different. I got a good clean contact, hit the target, and somehow Jim knocked it onto the crossbar. This is what made it so painful. Lorimer had done everything right. He had executed perfectly. His technique was flawless, and it still wasn't enough. Montgomery's save was miraculous. It was impossible. It was fate. Unlike Clough or the referee in Paris, Montgomery wasn't a villain. He was just a goalkeeper who made an incredible save. But for Lorimer, the result was the same. Another moment of glory stolen. Another chance lost. Another painful memory that would never fade. Wherever Lorimer went for the rest of his life, Sunderland fans reminded him of that moment. The wound never healed. The fourth source of Lorimer's pain wasn't a person. person, it was an organisation, the Scottish Football Association. And unlike the other conflicts, this one was entirely Lorimer's own fault. In 1971, Lorimer was called up to play for Scotland. It was an international tour. It was his duty to represent his country. Instead, Lorimer skipped it. One source says he declared himself unfit. That was a lie. The truth was different. Lorimer had accepted a lucrative offer to play exhibition matches in South Africa. He would spend the summer playing for Cape Town City. The money was good. The problem was that South Africa was under apartheid. The country was internationally condemned for its racist policies. There was a sporting boycott. Athletes around the world refused to play there. Lorimer went anyway. He later claimed he couldn't break the commitment, but he had made a choice. He chose money over his country. The Scottish Football Association was furious. They imposed a lifetime ban. Lorimer was told he would never play for Scotland again. The press labelled him a traitor. His reputation back home was destroyed. The ban was eventually lifted when new manager Tommy Docherty demanded his return, but the damage was permanent. Lorimer's international career was severely limited. He ended up with only 21 caps for Scotland. It should have been many more. Lorimer later tried to defend himself. Probably I was naive, but I was made to feel like a traitor. My parents were very upset. This defence doesn't hold up. Lorimer knew the deal was lucrative. He knew he had signed a contract. He understood he was breaking a commitment to Scotland to play in South Africa. The only thing he seemed naive about was the politics. In 1971, the anti-apartheid movement was a global cause. The sporting boycott was well established. Everyone knew playing in South Africa was wrong. Lorimer chose to cross that picket line for cash. He put money ahead of his country. He put personal gain ahead of doing what was right. Then, when he faced consequences, he complained about how he was treated. He focused on his own discomfort rather than his own actions. This incident left a permanent scar on his legacy back home in Scotland. It revealed a pattern of poor judgment that would appear again later in his life. The fifth and final person who hurt Lorimer was the most painful of all. His name was Billy Bremner. He was Lorimer's teammate. He was his Scotland roommate. He was his friend. After his first stint at Leeds ended, Lorimer returned to the club in 1983. He was older now, but still playing. Leeds was in the second division. Things weren't going well for the club, but Lorimer was home. Then, in October 1985, Billy Bremner became the manager. Bremner had been the captain of the great Leeds team. He and Lorimer had won everything together. They had suffered together through the Clough disaster and the Paris robbery. They were brothers in every way that mattered. Lorimer expected respect. He expected at least a conversation. What he got was shocking. Bremner called him in and said simply, "I want you out of the club." That was it. No explanation, no discussion, no acknowledgement of their shared history, just a cold dismissal. Lorimer was 38 years old. He knew his career was near the end. He could accept retirement. What he couldn't accept was the manner of it. "I would have preferred if he'd have called me in the office and said, 'Look, end of the day, you're 38. It's time to go,'" Lorimer explained later. "I think I deserved at least an explanation for what happened." Bremner never gave a reason. Years later, they remained friendly. They would laugh and joke together at club events. But Lorimer admitted he never quite got over his unease. This was the symbolic end of the Don Revie family. Revie had built a team with a family-like bond. The players were supposed to be loyal to each other forever. Lorimer and Bremner were at the heart of that family. When Bremner delivered that cold, managerial dismissal, he destroyed that myth. The lack of an explanation meant the wound could never heal. Lorimer was left with questions that would never be answered. Why? What had he done wrong? Didn't their history mean anything? The silence hurt more than any words could have. Peter Lorimer scored 238 goals for Leeds United. That record still stands today. His right boot was thunder. His talent was undeniable. He should be remembered as nothing but a hero. But pain spoke louder than records. His legacy is defined by what he couldn't forget. Clough's humiliation, the stolen goal in Paris, Montgomery's impossible save, the Scottish ban, Bremner's betrayal. These 5 conflicts overshadowed everything else. When Lorimer died in 2021, his passing was met with relative silence. There is no statue of him at Elland Road. His 238 goals should have guaranteed immortality. Instead, his career is remembered as a series of painful what-ifs. "He makes me sick." Those words from the beginning now make sense. Lorimer's whole legacy was shaped by what he couldn't forget, not just what he accomplished. The thunder of his goals was drowned out by the silence of his frustrations.